Okay, can you guys see my screen? Can you see the purple workshop, Unleash Inner
Yes.
Peace and Break Free from Overthinking workshop? Can you guys see that page?
Yes.
You can, if you can give me a thumbs up. Make sure you guys can see that. Thumbs up. Awesome. Okay, amazing. Amazing, amazing. Okay, let's do this. Okay, I'm just going to maybe get one more minute, just let a few people in. So, okay. So, welcome. Let's get started. So, I am so glad that you guys are here. Feel free to participate. So, feel free to participate, ask any questions in the chat. I will be checking in periodically. I'll be stopping and checking in periodically, and I would love your feedback when I kind of ask you guys some questions. Again, so you can ask any questions in the chat, and let's get started. So I want to introduce myself. My name is Natalie Otteson. I am a certified transformational life coach, energy healer, and astrologist. I was once stuck in so much pain, suffering, and self-doubt, insecurities, and unworthiness because of my experiences like parental divorce and abuse, young pregnancy, personal divorce, single parenting, adoption, losing loved ones. All of those things painted my reality with darkness, and my vision of the future was bleak, and I questioned so much about what I was even meant for. And now I am passionately leading women like you to reconnect to their soul's purpose. So what are we going to cover in this workshop? Number one, we are going to discover the power of mindfulness and how to use it to reduce stress and improve focus. Number two, we are going to learn effective techniques to stop overthinking and to regain some of that control over our thoughts. Number three, we're going to create a personal mindfulness routine for yourself that suits your needs and your lifestyle. And number four, we are going to cultivate some self-compassion and embrace a positive mindset. So, a few questions to ponder. What is mindfulness? How might lack of mindfulness be showing up in your life? And how can a mindfulness practice help you? So, mindfulness is a way of paying attention to what's happening right now in the present moment. It's a way of being aware of our thoughts and our feelings and surroundings without judging them as good or bad. When we're able to focus on mindfulness, you learn how to focus on one thing at a time and let go of distractions. And those distractions, those are what keep us overthinking and stuck on the hamster wheel. And when we're able to get off of that hamster wheel and stop looping, we can become calmer and happier and more in control of our emotions and life. So I know this is a big list, and I hope you guys can see this. So I want you to look at this list and see if you can recognize any of the ways that lack of mindfulness might be showing up in your life. So lack of mindfulness can be showing up as constant multitasking without full focus. That's me. That can be me. You could be feeling overwhelmed. Maybe you're neglecting your self-care. Okay, so again, going back to this list, lack of mindfulness. So how is it showing up for you? Again, so maybe it's neglecting your self-care, which is your eating habits, your rest. Maybe you're having difficulty staying present with your clients and interactions. Maybe it's mental fog when making important decisions or high levels of stress and anxiety. So can you guys still see the full screen? Oh my gosh. No. Okay. Okay. And maybe it's also allowing self-doubt to hinder business growth. So I would love for you guys to drop in the chat box how it might be showing up for you. Do any of these resonate with you, and how might it be showing up for you? Or you can even unmute yourself and share with the group how it also might be showing up for you. Anybody want to share? So multitasking, unhealthy eating, absolutely. Anybody else? Spinning my wheels, stress eating, absolutely. Yeah, it makes so much sense. So there are some benefits in creating a mindfulness practice. And there are obviously so many different reasons why a mindfulness practice is important, but I want to just like pinpoint a few of these and then focus on some of these for this particular situation. So reduce stress and anxiety. That can be one of the benefits of a mindfulness practice because it helps us reduce our negative thought patterns, and it also helps increase self-awareness. How about improving sleep quality? It also helps with managing difficulty managing emotions. So mindfulness can increase our emotional regulation by promoting self-awareness and reducing reactive responses. So it really helps us to be able to calm our nervous system. So when we go into that fight, flight, or freeze, it really helps us be able to bring that nervous system down. It also helps with negative thinking patterns. So mindfulness can help break negative thinking patterns and promote a more positive outlook on life. And this is one of the areas that I really want to focus on today, and talk about this afternoon. So tools to help you stop overthinking. So speaking of this negative thinking, having a mindfulness practice shows us that our negative thinking, our thoughts are just that, thoughts. And because we have them, it doesn't mean that we have to believe them or even get attached to them. We have somewhere around 60,000 thoughts a day, with an average of 80% of them being negative. And 92% of the thoughts that we're thinking today are the same thoughts that we thought yesterday. Isn't that so fascinating? So I want to give you some tools on how you can start helping yourself stop overthinking. So I wanted to share with you five tips, 5 mindfulness tools that I use to help me stop overthinking. And a little bit later, I want to help you build your own mindfulness practice. But these first 4 right here, meditation, gratitude, positive reading, and affirmations, I really dive deep into these in the first 3 episodes of my podcast. So if you haven't had the opportunity to check that out yet, I encourage you to do so, because I really dive into those 4 areas pretty deep. The one that I want to focus on for now is this one right here, which is self-coaching. So self-coach so I really want to focus on this one today. And the self-coaching all starts with thought downloads. So after I do my meditation, my gratitude, my positive reading, my affirmations, I grab my journal and I do a thought download. By the way, this is in the chat notes. You have a workbook in there that you can download and you can work through. I have a thought download worksheet in there for you so that you can use that. But basically what I do is I take a subject. So maybe it's just something for the day, or I take a subject, like maybe it's anxiety or fear, maybe it's a thought or a feeling. And I spend 10 to 15 minutes each day writing down on a piece of paper all of the things that come up for me, either regarding that subject, or maybe I just want to get everything out of my brain. So again, sometimes I use something very specific, and I do a specific thought download on, again, a thought or a feeling. But if I don't have something specific, again, then I get it all out. So there's a few reasons why I do this. It helps me process the information. It also helps me get it out of my brain, which frees up my brain to allow me to be more present in the moment. I'm also able to pull any circumstances, thoughts, feelings, actions, or results and self-coach on them. So do you guys have any questions on thought downloads? You put them in the chat box. Any questions on that? How to do a thought download? Maybe any more questions about what a thought download is? And I just set a timer and I just go for it. So I try to not let my pen leave the paper. What is it? A thought download is basically a stream of thoughts. So again, after I do my meditation, my gratitude, my affirmations, my positive reading, I grab that journal and I just write. And again, it might be a topic. Maybe somebody said something to me and it's bothering me, or maybe I have anxiety. So I have a lot of anxiety in my life. So sometimes I put anxiety at the top of my paper and I write down everything that's coming up for me regarding anxiety. That could lead me to other thoughts. That could lead me to other emotions or other feelings, whatever it happens to be. But I will just get everything out and I'll get it down on a piece of paper. And again, the reason why I do this is so that I'm able to move to the next step, which I'm going to show you, which is how to self-coach with this self-coaching tool. Does that make sense? Let me know if you need any more clarification on that. Okay, so this takes me to the next step, which is a self-coaching tool that I use, which is called the model. And I didn't create this. This was created by my mentor, Brooke Castillo, and I will break it down for you. So we've got circumstances which trigger our thoughts. And then we have a thought that produces a feeling. And that feeling then drives our actions. And then that action ends up creating a result for us. So, and we call this when I work with my clients, we call it CTFAR. So, and again, this is something that you have in your workbook. So circumstances, let's go back to the top here. Circumstances, they are things that are outside of our control, like other people or their behavior, or our past, or things like the weather. Circumstances are facts about a situation, and they're facts that every single person. The workbook is in the top of the chat, so it's a PDF that you can download. So circumstances are facts about a situation that every single person would agree upon. So I'll use the example of starting my podcast. So the circumstance in this situation would be the podcast or the podcast launch. By the way, this is a great topic that if you have a big goal, or if you have something that you're trying to achieve, you can put that at the top of your paper for your thought download. And then you can write down everything that comes up for you. For me, there was a lot that came up when it came to launching my podcast. So just a little side note. So back to the circumstances, our facts. Sometimes we forget the fun little fact that circumstances are actually facts, and we think that our thoughts are facts. And it's not actually until we have something happen that we are just responding to that circumstance or that situation. So we have a situation or a circumstance like launching a podcast, and then we have a thought about it. And then thoughts right here, they're just sentences that constantly run through our brain. So remember that the statistic that we have 60,000 thoughts a day with an average of 80% of them being negative. Our brain, for whatever reason, is wired this way. It wants it to be easy, it wants it to be comfortable, and it wants it to be familiar. And I don't know if you remember the other stat that 92% of what we're thinking today is what we thought yesterday. So unless we are actively working on changing our brain and the thoughts that are coming into our brain, we are just repeating the same thoughts that we had yesterday, whether they're good or they're bad, whether they serve us, or whether we even want to keep thinking them anymore. So my thought about starting this podcast was no one wants to listen to it. And of all the thoughts that I could think and that my brain could come up with, it came up with that one. And honestly, it did it for a very good reason. It wanted to keep me safe because of past experiences about showing up and being seen. So that's where we can go in and just thank our brain. But once we have these thoughts and those once we have those thoughts then create our feelings. And feelings are just an emotion. So they are just a sensation, a vibration in the body. And that thought for me, that no one wants to hear my podcast, that ended up creating self-doubt for me. And self-doubt, it's just an emotion like fear or anxiety or love or joy or happiness or even sadness. And then once we feel that emotion, so we have that feeling, once we then feel that emotion, it ends up driving all of our actions and inactions. So going back to this example of feeling self-doubt because I'm thinking nobody wants to hear my podcast because I'm just thinking about launching a podcast, that ended up creating all of these different actions for me of finding all the different ways that this podcast wouldn't work. I even met with people and then didn't follow through. I distracted myself with things like social media, other tasks, other projects, courses, talking on the phone with people. I didn't end up doing any work to start the podcast or setting a date or writing any episodes. And I even went in and judged myself for even having self-doubt about it, which ended up ultimately giving me the result that I ensured that I'd never created a podcast, which was the case back then. So this right here is what we call, and this whole situation is what we call an unintentional model. So I've got the podcast here. I'm thinking no one's going to listen to my podcast, which is making me feel self-doubt, which is creating all of these actions, and I make a podcast launch impossible. So this is what we call an unintentional model, and we have these unintentional models running through our brain all day long. And I like to say that an unmanaged mind creates an unmanaged life. And as long as in this situation, as long as I wasn't managing my brain, I also wasn't getting the result that I wanted, which was creating this podcast that I've always dreamed of having. So, the reason the reason that we know that it's not actually creating the podcast, which is causing me the self-doubt, is because I know people out there who have created podcasts and they didn't have self-doubt about doing it. So that's how we know it's the thought that we're thinking about it that is creating the self-doubt, which is creating these actions and ultimately giving us the result. So there were a lot of other models that I was running in my brain about starting this podcast, things like, who do you think you are? And you can't do this. And you're not a good writer because you do kind of have to be able to write in order to create these podcasts. My brain was offering me all sorts of thoughts and ideas. And the model that I had to move into in order to create this podcast is right here. So I had to believe something about myself in order to move forward and create this beautiful podcast that I've done. And I had to think that I am capable. And when I was thinking I am capable, that made me feel determined. And when I felt determined, I scheduled my consult with my podcast company. I was able to break it down into small steps. I focused on the first podcast only. I started to brainstorm. I started to write down ideas. And ultimately, I created the result that I ensure that I am capable of achieving this goal that I've always dreamed of. So in your workbook, I have given you a thought download sheet. I've given you an unintentional model worksheet with an intentional model attached to it so that you can start playing around with your own circumstances and your thoughts and your feelings and actions to ultimately help you get the results that you want. Because you can put anything in any one of these lines. So you can take a thought and then figure out what the feeling is and how that feeling is driving your actions. And then you can work this forwards and backwards. Let's say you want a specific result you want to create in your life. You put that result in here, and what are the actions that you need to do in order to get that result? And then how do you need to feel in order to do those actions? And then what do you need to think? And ultimately, what is the circumstance? So it's kind of a fun thing to be able to play around with, to start seeing what results you're creating in your life and help you create the results that you want in your life. So if we're able to start using these tools to recognize our thinking, and that gives us the opportunity to start shifting and changing those thoughts, as well as bringing in these other tools that I mentioned a little bit earlier, where we talk about meditation and gratitude and positive affirmations and reading. And I also like to include a little movement in there. I don't do movement every day, but I do include movement as well. So all of these beautiful mindfulness tools, they help us have more compassion for ourselves and really help us embrace and build a positive mindset to create the life that we ultimately want and desire. So I want to pause here and see if you guys have any questions about what I've talked about. Again, you can unmute yourself, you can throw it in the chat box, but let me know if you have any questions about this before we move on to the next slide. Good to go? Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Okay. If you have any questions, you can. And just double checking that you guys were able to see the workbook. It's the very first message in the chat box. So you can get it there and you can download it, and I can also email it out to you as well. Okay, so let's move on. So let's talk about creating your own mindfulness practice and morning routine. In the workbook, I provided you with, and I'm going to show it right here too. I provided you with 2 different pages on different ideas on how you can create your own mindfulness practice and morning routine. So I want you to kind of look over this list and see if anything sticks out to you. And I'd love to share if anything pops out to you. So it could be waking up with intention. It could be doing breath work. Breath work is such a beautiful way, especially if you're dealing with high anxiety. Breath work is such a beautiful tool in helping you regulate that and the nervous system. Maybe it's practicing gratitude like I do. Maybe it's journaling every day. Maybe it's connecting with nature. So getting yourself outside, taking a walk. Maybe it's a digital detox. I don't know how many of you could use a break from your phones or social media. Maybe it's affirmations or, again, gratitude. So what, if any of these, resonate with you? And what would you like to incorporate in your own life? You guys want to share? Anybody want to share anything? Anything that you want to incorporate in your life right now? And you can still mine as well. The meditation, the gratitude, the affirmation, the positive reading. And then obviously the self-coaching. So I just want to offer you the opportunity to play around with this And really, and maybe it's even prayer. Prayer is another one. So I want to offer you the opportunity to create your own spiritual or your own mindfulness practice and morning routine that you can do every day. I suggest, maybe 1 to 5 that you can do daily. So this was just an introductory to the model, how you can create your own mindfulness practice and how to start mastering your own mindset. And if you want to take this work deeper, I offer one-on-one coaching. And I also want to offer some free resources to you as well. I do have my podcast. And I go through a lot of these topics through my podcast. You can also follow me on Soul Sister Coaching on Instagram, at Soul Sister Coaching on Instagram, where I offer all sorts of free content all the time. You can also subscribe to my email list where I share fun things like webinars, group coaching, and so much more. So with that, what questions, if any, do you guys have for me? Any questions for me? Any questions about anything that I've covered? Any questions about creating your own mindfulness practice? Where you might be feeling stuck? Anything at all? You can unmute yourself. Anything coming up for you guys? No questions. Great information needed to hear. Excellent. Excellent. Well, with that, like I said, if you want to take this work deeper, I offer one-on-one coaching. Again, if not, I offer all these free resources. Check out the podcast, The Mindset School for Soulful Entrepreneurs with Natalie Otteson. And thank you so much for being here. Play with that workbook and see what comes up for you. You can always reach out to me. Oh, you don't see the, let me put it in here again. Hold on 1 second. Let me put the workbook in here. Let me try this one more time. Okay. Barb, let me know if you see it now. Do you see it now? Yes, yay, excellent. Okay, I can email it out. Okay, you see it, excellent. Yeah, play around with that workbook. And let me know if you guys have any questions. You can always reach out to me on Instagram, Soul Sister Coaching. I'm here and available. And thank you for being here. I appreciate it. And I will see you guys next time if you don't have any other questions.